Paul Walker was never supposed to die this way. November 30th, 2013, a red Porsche Carrera GT spins out on Hercules Street in Santa Clarita, slamming into a concrete pole before erupting into a fireball that reaches 1,000 degrees. Inside, trapped in the passenger seat, is the man who once told the world, "If one day the speed kills me, don't cry because I was smiling." Hours earlier, Paul had been smiling at a charity event, raising funds for typhoon victims in the Philippines. But by sunset, the blue-eyed actor who made us believe in loyalty, family, and living a quarter mile at a time was gone, claimed by the very speed that defined his life. The scene that greets emergency responders defies their worst nightmares. The Porsche has disintegrated upon impact, its twisted metal frame consumed by flames so intense that neighboring buildings are threatened. First responders arrive expecting to save lives, but instead become witnesses to the end of a story that had touched millions worldwide. This isn't a movie set where someone yells, "Cut." There are no stunt doubles, no second takes, no miraculous escapes. The man who had made speed look effortless on screen has been claimed by forces beyond any director's control. The cruel irony burns as intensely as the wreckage itself. Paul Walker, who had spent 13 years playing Brian O'Connor behind the wheel of impossibly fast cars, dies as a passenger. The actor who had made a career out of high-speed chases through Los Angeles streets meets his end on a quiet industrial road, not even driving the car that becomes his hearse. Roger Rodas, an experienced racing driver and Paul's business partner, was at the wheel when the Porsche lost control at over 90 miles per hour. But it's Paul's death that will send shockwaves around the world, revealing just how deeply this humble California surfer had embedded himself in the hearts of millions. The prophecy he had spoken years earlier with his characteristic smile proves devastatingly accurate. Security footage from the charity event shows him laughing just minutes before getting into Rodas's car, his face lit with the genuine joy that had always set him apart from typical Hollywood stars. "Don't cry because I was smiling," he had said, and indeed his final moments were filled with happiness. Surrounded by people working toward causes he believed in, planning future humanitarian missions, living the life of purpose he had always sought. News breaks across social media with the same unstoppable velocity that had always fascinated Paul. Within hours, #RIP Paul Walker trends globally as fans struggle to process the loss of someone who had felt more like family than a distant celebrity. Vin Diesel's first post captures the essence of their relationship. "Brother, I will miss you very much." 3 simple words that carry the weight of 13 years making films together, but more importantly, a genuine friendship that had transcended Hollywood's artificial relationships. The timing couldn't be more heartbreaking. Paul had left the charity event for a quick drive in Roger's prized Porsche, excited about the car's performance capabilities. The man who had spent his career making movie magic out of automotive stunts was about to experience the ultimate ride in one of the world's most demanding supercars. But this time, there would be no special effects team to ensure his safety, no carefully choreographed sequence to guarantee survival. The Porsche Carrera GT itself becomes a character in this tragedy, a machine notorious for being one of the most difficult supercars ever produced. With 605 horsepower and handling characteristics that challenged even professional drivers, the car was beautiful, fast, and deadly. The vehicle that should have been a thrilling experience becomes instead the instrument of destiny, proving that some prophecies write themselves in metal and asphalt. As flames consume the wreckage on Hercules Street, they also burn away any illusion that fame provides protection from fate. Paul Walker, who had survived countless fictional crashes and explosions, succumbs to a real-world accident that no stunt coordinator had planned and no insurance company had covered. The boy who had dreamed of swimming with sharks in the Pacific Ocean meets his end not in the depths he loved, but in the speed he had celebrated both on screen and off. September 12th, 1973. Paul William Walker IV enters the world in Glendale, California, carrying blue eyes that will one day captivate global audiences and a restless spirit that will never quite find peace in any single pursuit. Born to Cheryl, a former fashion model, and Paul Walker III, a sewer contractor and amateur boxer. He arrives with the kind of natural charisma that seems destined for spotlights, though his true passions will always pull him toward the ocean's depths, rather than Hollywood's shallow glamour. The divorce that fractures his parents' marriage when Paul is just 2 years old establishes patterns that will define his entire existence. Growing up shuttling between households creates in young Paul an adaptability that serves him well in entertainment, but also a restless energy that makes settling into any single identity nearly impossible. He learns early to be whoever people need him to be, the charming child actor, the dedicated student, the adventurous surfer, while privately wondering which version represents his authentic self. Paul's childhood in the San Fernando Valley during the 1980s unfolds against a backdrop of possibility and contradiction. While other kids dream of becoming rock stars or professional athletes, Paul harbors two consuming passions that seem impossible to reconcile: marine biology and entertainment. His bedroom walls display not movie posters but photographs of great white sharks and coral reef ecosystems. The boy who will make millions racing cars on screen initially dreams of swimming with apex predators in the world's deepest waters. His entry into show business happens almost by accident, the natural result of his mother's modeling connections rather than burning ambition for fame. At age 2, Paul's cherubic face and easy comfort in front of cameras make him a favorite among commercial casting directors. Throughout his childhood, he continues booking advertisements and small television roles, but unlike many child actors, Paul never seems consumed by the business. For him, acting represents adventure and income rather than identity or purpose. The discovery of his extraordinary ease in water occurs during family trips to Huntington Beach, where young Paul displays an almost supernatural comfort with ocean conditions that intimidate adults. Local lifeguards notice his fearless approach to heavy surf and instinctive understanding of ocean safety. By age 10, Paul can identify dozens of shark species by their silhouettes and recite complex facts about marine ecosystems with the enthusiasm other kids reserve for baseball statistics. Village Christian School provides Paul with educational stability despite his growing entertainment commitments. Teachers remember him as genuinely humble about his increasing recognition, someone who seemed almost embarrassed by his natural gifts while remaining intensely curious about subjects that captured his interest. His academic performance reflects the same conscientiousness he brings to professional sets: thorough preparation, respectful collaboration, and commitment to excellence regardless of the project's scope. The teenage years reveal Paul's fundamental challenge: how to honor multiple passions without betraying any of them. He excels academically while maintaining an active entertainment career that requires frequent absences from school. Friends describe someone comfortable moving between different worlds, equally at home discussing marine biology with college professors and performing emotional scenes for television directors. This adaptability becomes both his greatest asset and source of internal tension. Paul's relationship with his parents during this formative period reflects the complexity of managing a child's career while maintaining family normalcy. Both parents work to ensure that success doesn't corrupt their son's fundamental decency, instilling values of service and humility that will define his approach to fame throughout his career. The lesson that takes strongest root: privilege creates responsibility to help others, not excuses for self-indulgence. The choice between pursuing marine biology at UC Santa Barbara or committing fully to an entertainment career reveals Paul's essential character. Rather than selecting the safer, more traditional path, he chooses to continue acting while keeping his oceanographic dreams alive. This refusal to abandon either passion becomes a defining pattern. Paul Walker will spend his entire life refusing to choose between different aspects of his identity, creating both his authentic appeal and the restless energy that ultimately leads to tragedy. Could anyone have predicted that the California teenager torn between studying sharks and performing for cameras would become one of Hollywood's most beloved figures? The seeds are all present, the love of speed, the genuine humility, the commitment to service, but so are the contradictions that will make his life both compelling and ultimately unsustainable. Paul Walker enters adulthood determined to live authentically in every area of his existence, unaware that such intensity might demand a price higher than anyone should pay. The late 1990s find Paul Walker navigating Hollywood's treacherous waters with the same fearless intuition he brings to surfing dangerous breaks at Malibu. His journey toward blockbuster stardom follows no conventional playbook, marked instead by a determination to choose substance over easy success. Decisions that reveal an actor more interested in craft than celebrity, even as his leading man looks make the latter almost inevitable. Paul's breakthrough in She's All That, 1999, establishes him as more than just another pretty face in Hollywood's teen movie machine. Playing the popular athlete who discovers depth beneath surface attractions, Paul brings authentic vulnerability to what could have been a cardboard character. The metatextual irony doesn't escape industry observers. Here's an actor who genuinely embodies the California golden boy ideal, yet consistently chooses roles that challenge audiences to look beyond physical appearance. The transition from teen heartthrob to serious actor proves more challenging than Paul anticipates. Casting directors see his looks first, his talent second, creating a career-long struggle for dramatic credibility that frustrates someone with genuine artistic ambitions. Yet Paul approaches each audition with methodical preparation worthy of his marine biology studies, researching characters and contexts with intensity that surprises directors expecting another vapid pretty boy. His work in smaller films like Pleasantville and The Skulls reveals an actor willing to explore darker psychological territory. In The Skulls, Paul delivers a performance that captures the seductive danger of power and privilege, hinting at complexity beneath his sunny exterior. These roles don't generate significant box office returns, but they establish his credibility within industry circles and demonstrate commitment to growth over guaranteed paychecks. The audition for The Fast and the Furious in 2000 represents a perfect convergence of Paul's authentic interests and Hollywood's commercial demands. Director Rob Cohen needs someone who can embody both street racing culture and law enforcement authority, a character existing in the space between two worlds. Paul's natural athleticism, combined with his ability to convey moral complexity, makes him ideal for Brian O'Connor. More importantly, his genuine fascination with automotive culture means he won't have to fake the passion that drives his character. Preparation for the role reveals Paul's commitment to authenticity in everything he pursues. He spends months learning about underground racing culture, attending illegal street races, and developing the driving skills necessary to make his performance convincing. Unlike many actors who rely entirely on stunt doubles, Paul insists on handling as much of his own driving as safety permits. This dedication to realism becomes a hallmark of his approach. Audiences sense genuine engagement rather than mere performance. The success of The Fast and the Furious changes Paul's trajectory in ways both obvious and subtle. Suddenly, he's not just another young actor competing for limited roles. He's co-lead of a franchise that taps into global fascination with speed, rebellion, and male friendship. But success also brings pressure to repeat the formula, potentially limiting opportunities to explore other facets of his range. Paul finds himself in the peculiar position of being defined by a role that perfectly suits one aspect of his personality while potentially restricting others. Between franchise installments, Paul deliberately seeks projects that challenge him artistically and personally. Into the Blue combines his love of diving with action-adventure filmmaking, allowing him to showcase underwater skills while supporting ocean conservation causes. Running Scared pushes him into darker territory, playing a character whose moral compass spins wildly as circumstances spiral beyond control. These choices reveal an actor prioritizing growth over easy money. Perhaps most significantly, Paul's rising profile provides him with platforms to pursue his deepest convictions. He begins using celebrity status to support marine conservation efforts and disaster relief organizations, discovering that fame can serve purposes beyond personal gratification. The boy who once dreamed of swimming with sharks finds ways to protect their habitats, while his love of speed translates into advocacy for racing safety initiatives. The patterns established during these breakthrough years will define the remainder of Paul's career. The refusal to choose between competing passions, the insistence on authenticity even in artificial environments, and the growing understanding that privilege creates opportunities to serve causes larger than entertainment. He enters the new millennium as someone who has achieved the success most actors only dream of, but already shows signs of the restless energy that will make sustained happiness elusive. The question haunting those who know him during this period grows increasingly urgent. Can someone maintain this level of intensity across multiple demanding pursuits without eventually reaching a breaking point? The year 2001 explodes across Paul Walker's existence like nitrous oxide through an engine block, transforming him from promising young actor into a global cultural phenomenon with the release of The Fast and the Furious. But this isn't merely another action movie success. It's the birth of a mythology that will redefine how audiences relate to film franchises and the actors who inhabit them. For Paul, it means becoming the face of something much larger than entertainment. A celebration of chosen family, unwavering loyalty, and the intoxicating freedom found in living life 1/4 mile at a time. The film's unexpected massive success catches everyone off guard, including Paul himself. What began as a relatively modest street racing movie evolves into a worldwide sensation that grosses over $200 million and spawns an entire universe of sequels. Suddenly, Paul finds himself recognized in every corner of the globe, with fans treating Brian O'Connor not as a fictional character but as someone who embodies their dreams of rebellion and brotherhood. The line between actor and character begins blurring in ways that will define the rest of his life. Paul's approach to sudden mega fame reveals character traits that separate him from typical Hollywood stars. Rather than surrounding himself with handlers or creating barriers between himself and the public, he maintains an accessibility that borders on reckless. Stories circulate about Paul stopping to help stranded motorists, buying groceries for elderly neighbors, and spending hours discussing marine biology with young fans who approach him on the street. This genuine connection with ordinary people becomes central to his appeal. Audiences sense they're watching someone uncorrupted by success. The Fast and Furious franchise's evolution mirrors Paul's own growth as both performer and person. Each installment becomes more ambitious in scope and spectacle, but Paul ensures that Brian O'Connor's core values remain constant: loyalty to family, commitment to justice, and the belief that speed can be a form of spiritual expression. These aren't just character traits, they reflect Paul's personal philosophy, making his performance feel less like acting and more like documentary footage of someone living authentically. The financial windfall from franchise success provides Paul with resources to pursue projects that matter personally rather than professionally. His decision to star in Into the Blue allows him to showcase diving expertise while highlighting ocean conservation issues. The film combines his love of underwater exploration with Hollywood spectacle, creating something that feels genuine rather than calculated. Critics notice Paul's increased comfort on screen when portraying someone whose passions align with his own. Between film productions, Paul begins developing the humanitarian interests that will eventually define his legacy as much as his entertainment career. The massive earthquake that devastates Haiti in 2010 provides his first opportunity to translate celebrity into meaningful action. Rather than simply writing checks or lending his name to existing charities, Paul travels to Port-au-Prince to participate in actual rescue and relief efforts, discovering that helping people in crisis provides satisfaction no movie role has ever delivered. His relationships with Fast and Furious co-stars, particularly Vin Diesel, evolve beyond professional collaboration into genuine brotherhood. The on-screen chemistry between Brian and Dom reflects real friendship forged through shared experiences and mutual respect. Cast members frequently describe the franchise as family rather than business arrangement, with Paul serving as emotional center who keeps everyone connected to the film's original spirit of loyalty and authenticity. The pressure of global stardom might have corrupted someone with different values, but Paul approaches fame with the same humility he brought to his earliest auditions. He continues living in modest homes rather than Hollywood mansions, drives practical cars alongside his racing machines, and maintains friendships with people from his pre-fame life. This refusal to be changed by circumstances becomes both his greatest strength and a factor that will contribute to his ultimate vulnerability. Paul's natural charisma in interviews and public appearances masks a growing internal tension between his public persona and private desires. While audiences see someone perfectly comfortable with celebrity, those close to him recognize signs of someone yearning for experiences that feel more substantial than entertainment. His increasing involvement in humanitarian causes reflects this search for meaning, but also creates scheduling conflicts between movie obligations and relief work that matter more to him personally. As the franchise continues breaking box office records worldwide, Paul finds himself in the unique position of being simultaneously one of Hollywood's biggest stars and one of its most grounded individuals. The success that should bring complete satisfaction instead creates restless energy. The same drive that made him perfect for action films now demands new challenges, new ways to push boundaries, new methods of serving others beyond the confines of movie screens. The question haunting those closest to Paul during these peak years centers on sustainability. Can anyone maintain such intense engagement across multiple demanding fields indefinitely? His commitment to authenticity means he approaches everything, film performances, humanitarian missions, personal relationships, with complete dedication. This all-or-nothing mentality serves him professionally but creates lifestyle patterns that prioritize immediate impact over long-term safety considerations, setting the stage for the tragedy that will claim him just as he reaches the height of his influence and begins contemplating what legacy he wants to leave beyond entertainment. The catastrophic Indian Ocean tsunami of December 2004 and Hurricane Katrina's devastation of New Orleans in 2005 serve as twin wake-up calls that fundamentally alter Paul Walker's understanding of his place in the world. Witnessing such massive human suffering through news coverage, the actor who had built his career on fictional disasters finds himself compelled to engage with real-world tragedy in ways that will transform him from entertainer into humanitarian activist, setting in motion the patterns of service and risk-taking that will define his final years. Paul's initial response to these disasters reveals someone grappling with the disconnect between Hollywood fantasy and authentic human need. While his movies feature spectacular destruction followed by triumphant heroics, Real disasters leave behind only suffering that persists long after news cameras depart. The cognitive dissonance between his fictional heroics and actual helplessness in the face of genuine catastrophe creates psychological pressure that demands resolution through action rather than mere financial contribution. The decision to travel to New Orleans in Katrina's aftermath represents Paul's first serious attempt to translate celebrity status into meaningful assistance. Rather than participating in typical star-studded fundraising events, he joins actual search and rescue operations, working alongside emergency responders in conditions that would challenge experienced professionals. The experience reveals someone whose commitment to helping others extends far beyond photo opportunities or tax-deductible donations. Working in New Orleans flood zones exposes Paul to human resilience and suffering on scales that Hollywood had never prepared him to witness. He spends days wading through contaminated water, helping evacuate stranded residents and distribute emergency supplies to people who have lost everything. The work is dangerous, exhausting, and completely removed from the glamorous world of movie premieres and magazine covers. Yet Paul finds the experience more fulfilling than any role he has ever played. The psychological impact of witnessing real disaster recovery proves profound and lasting. Paul begins displaying symptoms familiar to emergency responders: compassion fatigue, hypervigilance, and difficulty readjusting to normal social situations after returning from crisis zones. His naturally empathetic personality, combined with his refusal to maintain professional distance from people he helps, makes him particularly vulnerable to absorbing trauma from every disaster site he visits. The establishment of Reach Out Worldwide in 2010 represents Paul's attempt to systematize his disaster response activities and create something permanent that will outlast his entertainment career. ROW's mission, providing rapid response relief using military veterans and first responders, reflects Paul's belief that expertise matters more than good intentions. The organization's structure ensures that when ROW deploys, team members arrive prepared to work rather than pose for publicity photos. Paul's approach to humanitarian work challenges traditional celebrity charity models by insisting on hands-on participation in actual relief efforts. While other stars write checks and attend galas, Paul crawls through earthquake rubble, distributes supplies in active war zones, and participates in medical evacuations under genuinely dangerous conditions. His ROW teammates quickly learn to think of him not as a famous actor helping out, but as a skilled relief worker who happens to be recognizable. The financial resources provided by continuing Fast and Furious success enable Paul to expand ROW's capabilities significantly, but they also create internal conflicts between entertainment obligations and humanitarian commitments. Studio executives grow nervous about their stars' tendency to disappear into disaster zones between film productions, while Paul becomes frustrated with having to choose between lucrative movie deals and meaningful relief work that provides genuine satisfaction. Perhaps most significantly, Paul's deepening involvement in disaster relief exposes him to situations where split-second decisions determine life or death outcomes on a regular basis. This constant exposure to high-stakes scenarios begins affecting his risk assessment in other areas of life, as if surviving earthquake aftershocks and medical evacuations has made him feel invulnerable to more mundane dangers. The psychological conditioning that makes him effective in crisis situations may also be eroding his instinctive caution in everyday circumstances. The pattern established during these transformative years, using success as a platform for service while maintaining the same intensity that made him successful in entertainment, creates lifestyle demands that might be unsustainable over time. Paul's refusal to choose between competing passions means he approaches everything with maximum commitment, whether filming action sequences or extracting survivors from disaster zones. This all-or-nothing mentality becomes both his greatest asset and potential liability. As Paul enters the 2010s, he has successfully transformed from action movie star into legitimate humanitarian leader. But the transition has come at personal costs that concern those who know him best. The question haunting his final years becomes increasingly urgent. Can someone maintain such intense engagement across multiple demanding fields without eventually reaching a breaking point where the very intensity that defines him ultimately becomes the source of his destruction? The final months leading to November 30th, 2013 unfold like a perfectly orchestrated tragedy, with Paul Walker seemingly racing against time to accomplish everything he believes his life should represent. His existence during this period operates at an intensity that alarms everyone around him, juggling Fast and Furious 7 production demands, expanding reach-out worldwide operations globally, maintaining his role as devoted father to teenager Meadow, all while harboring a growing sense that he needs to accomplish something significant before an unnamed deadline expires. Production of Fast and Furious 7 begins in September 2013 with higher stakes than any previous installment, as the franchise has evolved into a global entertainment juggernaut worth billions of dollars. Paul's Brian O'Connor serves as the moral center grounding increasingly spectacular action sequences, but those working closely with him notice subtle changes in his demeanor. A restless energy suggesting he's already thinking beyond the current film, as if planning for a future that will require different kinds of heroism than Hollywood provides. Paul's conversations during these final months reveal someone wrestling with profound questions about legacy and meaning that go far beyond entertainment industry concerns. He confides to close friends that he's seriously considering scaling back his acting commitments after completing Fast 7, to focus primarily on humanitarian work and spending more time with Meadow, who at 15 is beginning to make her own plans for adulthood. The man who once lived completely in the present moment is suddenly thinking in terms of decades rather than quarter miles. The expansion of ROW operations occupies much of Paul's mental and emotional energy during his final year. He's particularly passionate about establishing training facilities where celebrities can learn actual disaster response skills rather than simply lending their names to causes they don't understand. This vision requires significant fundraising, organizational development, and personal time investment that adds another layer of complexity to an already overpacked schedule that leaves little room for rest or reflection. November 2013 brings Typhoon Haiyan, one of the strongest tropical cyclones ever recorded, which devastates the Philippines with winds exceeding 190 miles per hour and storm surges that obliterate entire coastal communities. The disaster creates exactly the kind of humanitarian crisis that demands ROW's immediate response, and Paul throws himself into relief coordination with characteristic intensity that concerns friends who notice his increasing inability to maintain boundaries between personal well-being and service commitments. The charity event scheduled for November 30th represents Paul's attempt to mobilize his entertainment industry contacts for Haiyan relief efforts while combining his dual passions for automotive culture and humanitarian service. Rather than hosting a typical celebrity fundraiser focused on glamour and social networking, Paul organizes a car show that brings together racing enthusiasts and disaster relief supporters in an authentic celebration of community service that reflects his integrated approach to life. Paul's behavior throughout November 30th reveals someone energized by the charity event's success, but also displaying the restless energy that has characterized his final months. Attendees describe him as genuinely happy, moving through crowds with characteristic warmth while discussing ambitious plans for future ROW operations. Security footage captures him laughing and joking with friends, displaying none of the melancholy that might suggest someone consciously contemplating mortality. The decision to leave the charity event for a brief drive in Roger Rodas's Porsche Carrera GT appears completely spontaneous, the kind of impulsive choice that had always characterized Paul's approach to life. Witnesses report that he seemed excited about experiencing the car's legendary performance capabilities, asking technical questions about its engineering while displaying the boyish enthusiasm that had never dimmed despite decades in Hollywood's cynical environment. The final photographs of Paul alive show him wearing his habitual smile, looking relaxed and genuinely content as he poses with the red Porsche that will become his hearse within minutes. There are no signs of premonition, unusual behavior, or anything suggesting someone aware they're approaching life's end. Just a man enjoying a perfect California afternoon with a friend, surrounded by automotive culture that had given him both career and community throughout his adult life. Roger Rodas, an experienced racing driver and Paul's business partner in always evolving racing shop, takes the wheel of the Carrera GT around 3:30 p.m. for what both men expect will be a brief test drive through the industrial area surrounding their Valencia facility. The Porsche they're driving represents one of automotive history's most extreme achievements, 605 horsepower channeled through a machine that demands absolute precision from its operator, beautiful and deadly in equal measure. The streets around their racing shop seem perfect for exploring the Carrera GT's capabilities, wide, relatively empty industrial roads that appear to offer safe space for high-performance driving. But the Porsche's immense power, combined with factors that investigators will later debate, tire age, road conditions, mechanical issues, creates a perfect storm that overwhelms even Rodas's considerable driving skills within minutes of their departure. Paul Walker dies as he had lived, surrounded by speed, friendship, and the pursuit of experiences that pushed beyond ordinary boundaries. But his death also occurs in direct service to others, leaving a charity event where he had spent the day raising funds for disaster victims halfway around the world whom he would never meet, but whose suffering he had made his personal responsibility. November 30th, 2013, 3:30 p.m. Paul Walker takes his final ride and the world loses a brother. The red Porsche Carrera GT that Roger Rodas pilots away from the charity event in Valencia carries two friends sharing excitement about an afternoon drive in one of history's most demanding supercars. Security cameras capture their departure. Paul's familiar smile visible through the passenger window as they accelerate toward Hercules Street, and an appointment with destiny that neither man can anticipate. Within 3 minutes, both will be dead, consumed by flames that burn with the same intensity Paul brought to every aspect of his existence. The crash occurs at 3:33 p.m. on a stretch of industrial road that should have been safe for high-performance driving. When the Porsche loses control at speeds exceeding 90 miles per hour, physics takes command with brutal efficiency. The car spins violently before striking a concrete light pole and concrete tree, the impact so severe that the vehicle literally splits apart before erupting in flames that reach temperatures above 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The beautiful machine that had promised transcendent speed becomes instead a crematorium that consumes everything within seconds. Emergency responders arrive to find a scene of destruction that defies their training and experience. The Porsche has been reduced to twisted metal and ash, its carbon fiber construction contributing to flames so intense that approaching the wreckage proves initially impossible. Fire crews battle the blaze while paramedics stand helpless, knowing that no rescue attempt can succeed against such devastating forces. This isn't a movie set where heroes emerge from exploding cars. This is reality asserting final authority over two lives lived at maximum intensity. The identification of victims requires dental records because the flames have erased almost every physical trace of Paul Walker and Roger Rodas. except the bond that brought them together. Paul, who had spent his career making spectacular crashes look survivable, succumbs to forces that no stunt coordinator had choreographed and no insurance policy had anticipated. The man whose smile had lit up screens worldwide will be remembered by that expression, captured moments before his final quarter mile began. News of the accident spreads across social media with velocity matching Paul's beloved quarter-mile runs. Within hours, #RIP Paul Walker trends globally as fans struggle to process the loss of someone who had represented authenticity in Hollywood's artificial landscape. The outpouring reveals the unique relationship Paul had cultivated with audiences. People don't just mourn a famous actor. They grieve for someone who had felt like family, a brother whose friendship had enriched their own lives through screens and speakers. Vin Diesel's initial response captures the essence of their relationship and the Fast and Furious family's genuine bonds. "Brother, I will miss you very much." 3 simple words carry the weight of 13 years making films together, but more importantly, a friendship that had transcended professional collaboration to become something deeper. The big man who had played Dom Toretto with such commanding presence is reduced to heartbroken simplicity when confronting the loss of his screen partner and real-life brother. The investigation into the crash reveals details that make the tragedy even more heartbreaking for those who loved Paul. The Porsche Carrera GT, while mechanically sound at the time of impact, was notoriously difficult to handle even for professional drivers. Its 605 horsepower and advanced suspension systems demanded absolute precision, leaving no margin for error when conditions became challenging. The car's 9-year-old tires, while still within legal parameters, may have contributed to the loss of control that proved fatal. Most devastating of all, forensic analysis suggests that Paul survived the initial impact and remained conscious for precious seconds while trapped in a car rapidly filling with smoke and approaching flames. The man who had made a career of escaping impossible situations found himself in the one scenario where no heroics could provide salvation. His final moments were spent not behind the wheel as Brian O'Connor, but as a passenger helpless to change the outcome of his own story. Universal Studios confronts an unprecedented crisis as Fast and Furious 7 sits half-completed in editing rooms worldwide. Paul had filmed approximately half his scenes when the accident occurred, leaving crucial plot points unresolved and emotional arcs incomplete. The studio must choose between scrapping a $250 million production or finding ways to honor Paul's memory while providing closure for the franchise he had helped build into a global phenomenon. The decision to complete Fast 7 using groundbreaking technology, body doubles and Paul's brothers Cody and Caleb as stand-ins, creates technical and emotional challenges unprecedented in cinema history. The Walker brothers volunteer to help finish Paul's final performance, undergoing months of physical training and emotional preparation to approximate his movements, mannerisms, and presence. The process becomes a form of grief therapy that allows Paul's family to actively participate in preserving his cinematic legacy. Director James Wan and the surviving cast spend months crafting the film's farewell sequence, understanding they're creating more than just a movie ending. They're providing global closure for someone beloved by millions. The scene of Brian O'Connor driving away from his Fast family as "See You Again" plays becomes one of cinema's most emotionally devastating farewells, a perfect synthesis of fiction and reality that honors both character and actor. "See You Again," performed by Wiz Khalifa featuring Charlie Puth, evolves from soundtrack song into global anthem of loss and remembrance. The music video, combining footage from Paul's films with images of his humanitarian work, generates billions of views and transforms the track into YouTube's most-watched video for years. The lyrics, "It's been a long day without you, my friend," give voice to feelings that fans worldwide struggle to articulate about losing someone they had never met but deeply loved. The film's April 2015 release creates a cultural moment unprecedented in entertainment history. Audiences don't simply attend Fast and Furious 7. They participate in a collective mourning ritual that celebrates Paul's life while saying goodbye to Brian O'Connor. Box office records shatter as people who had never seen a Fast film purchase tickets, drawn by the opportunity to participate in this unprecedented cinematic farewell that blends grief and celebration. Paul's prophecy proves devastatingly accurate in ways he never could have anticipated. "If one day the speed kills me, don't cry because I was smiling," he had said years earlier. And indeed, his final documented expression shows him laughing with friends at the charity event. But his death also accomplishes something beyond the prophecy. It transforms a Hollywood actor into an eternal symbol of living authentically while serving others, ensuring that his smile becomes immortal, even as his physical presence is consumed by flames. The speed that Paul had celebrated in films and embraced in life ultimately claims him, but it also preserves him at the moment of greatest impact and meaning. Unlike celebrities who fade gradually or become cautionary tales, Paul Walker dies at the peak of his humanitarian influence while actively helping others. His final act, attending a charity event for typhoon victims, ensures that he will be remembered not just as an action star but as someone who used fame as a platform for service until the very end. The Paul Walker Foundation, established by his daughter Meadow, continues the marine conservation and disaster relief work that had given his final years their deepest meaning. Row operations persist under new leadership, ensuring that Paul's vision of celebrity-supported humanitarian aid survives his death. His influence extends beyond entertainment into areas that mattered most to him personally: protecting oceans, helping disaster victims, and proving that fame carries responsibilities larger than self-promotion. The question Paul's death poses to everyone who admired him remains as urgent today as it was on November 30th, 2013. How do we live with maximum authenticity while remaining mindful of mortality? How do we embrace intensity without courting destruction? Paul Walker died before answering these questions completely, but his life provides guidance for anyone brave enough to follow his example of refusing to choose between passion and service, speed and compassion, Hollywood fantasy and humanitarian reality. He proved that it's possible to live genuinely in artificial environments while using success to serve causes larger than entertainment, even if such living demands a price that ultimately proves too high to pay. His prophecy fulfilled, Paul Walker becomes immortal precisely because he refused to live safely, choosing instead to smile his way through 40 years of quarter-mile moments that added up to a legacy worth celebrating. The brother we lost too soon remains the brother we remember most clearly, forever frozen in that final smile that promised the ride of a lifetime would always be worth whatever price fate might demand in return.